What's poppin', ladies and gents? Welcome back once again to another pre-race show. This time around, my buddy Drip joining me as always. Drip, how's it going? Welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you around.
It's good to be back.
And
Wasn't around last week, but yeah, good to be here for some Zandvoort action.
yep, you said it. Round 8 for D1 Zandvoort. A very technical track, very complicated one where pretty much it's a high downforce track, high ERS deployment rate, and I don't know. I think this track is all about qualifying because there's the track is narrow. Overtaking opportunities are perhaps one or two, maybe end of turn one, and pretty much it's a track where pace is of utmost importance. So I don't know. Some fun facts. It has some bent corners. I don't know, Drip, if you know the exact angle of inclination.
Well, I did go out there with a protractor last year when I went to the race, and it turns out it's actually 18 degrees. No,
18
that's just what they say that it is. I didn't do that.
It looks
But
like it's 18 though, but it's
yeah,
it's a good
they
banking.
stated as 18. And like you said, this track there's little to no room for overtaking. They call it Monaco without the walls. It's just a parade of cars. We've seen the actual F1 race at this point. It was a couple weeks ago now, and it's a lot of close following and constant pressure from the car behind, but not really any room to ever make the move. So it's constantly a battle of you're your only way you're gonna lose positions.
Exactly.
You make mistakes, you're out.
So
So like you said, qualifying's super important here.
So it's basically more of like a mental battle, right? Like how much you can hold the stress, like seeing the little red arrow pop up behind you, seeing how long you can hold without making mistakes, as you said, and basically how much you can hold pace because we've seen quality, as we said, yeah, it's important, but then I think it's the driver's ability to hold that consistent pace over a 15-20 lap stint and bringing it home in one piece. So speaking of consistency, I don't know. We've seen throughout the season that softs are basically a qualifying tire. They last 2-3 laps and then they fall off a cliff. So in terms of tire strategy, do you think well would drivers go the traditional medium hard and then in case of a safety car, of an early safety car, they go for hards, or do you think there are gonna be some bold drivers who go for hard and then opt for the medium as a faster tire towards the end of the race?
I think the hard start might be seen this weekend. There's the hard tire's been shown as a tire that's not really as slow as it as perceived to be in
Exactly.
these new cars,
Hmm.
and it still holds quite a lot of pace, and it's obviously got the most life in it, and it's shown it. You can probably go close to full race distance, if not 3/4, on some tracks.
And on good and on good
In our
pace.
distances, 50%, yeah, at a respectable pace too.
Hmm.
So I can see a few people going for that, especially with the lack of overtaking opportunities too. It's really only the straightaway at the front, like you said. So that hard start with possibly a safety car, some people may even try and string it out long enough to go to softs at the end of the race. When you're on that low fuel opportunity, you can try and get a little bit of extra laps because there's less wear, and that may even be where you see some of the people who are trying to stretch mediums from early in the race, maybe a mid-race pit stop, making mistakes on those high bank corners, causing safety cars.
True. Because you make a really good point there because, as you said before, Monaco with the walls. But I think it's also if you want to make mediums stretch to make it to softs or hards to softs, I think you really gotta take care, gotta watch out for those rears because I think it's a really traction heavy track, one where you're eager to put the power down coming out of the bank corners because you come with the speed, with the momentum, so you want to get as quick on the power as you can, but then again you do that and you're eating rear wheels until at some point the car starts basically tank slapping all around the track. So it's one of those few tracks where front tires, they do suffer, but not as much as rear. So I don't know. I think it's at what point do you like do how much rear slip is too much rear slip is what I'm saying. So I don't
I
know.
think on a track like this, it's any.
Okay.
You gotta be planted. It's as much as there's banking, it's
Mhm.
a lot. There's no opportunity where you're flat other than the main straight.
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of
That's true.
bouncing going on in corner exits. Turn three is really bad for that at corner exit. There's a lot of hop of the car. So if you've got skipping while you're trying to balance
Mhm.
the car coming out of the banking, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Especially coming into that fast sweeping right hander of turn number 7, you need as much grip as you can to try and come through that at a respectable pace without getting overtaken. So
I agree.
I think any slip at all is get into the pits. It's better to take a couple seconds there than putting it in the wall.
It's a front wing change, you say.
Yeah. Hopefully it's just a front wing change. Let's put it that way.
True. And also, I mean, you raised another good point, which is pushing and sliding, and that I'm referring to the curbs around the circuit. So, how aggressive would you need to be around Sandboard with the curbs? Because I mean, with the bottoming out and the bouncing, like, I think you put more than 3/4 of the car on the curb, it's over. Like that thing is not coming back. Like it bounces and then straight you go. So
The curbs here are not very raised, but they've got enough height that it really affects the ground effect portion of these cars and that underbody downforce. So, like you say, like half, 3/4 of the tire of the car over that curb, and you're really unsettling the car, especially combining with those curbs. So I'd be more on the passive side,
mm,
only where you absolutely have to take a curb, maybe on like a corner entry or like a mid corner apex to try and get the car to rotate or something. But corner exit, I'd be trying to avoid them at all cost.
yeah, I mean it's a gamble, you say, no, because you go faster taking the curves, but then again, how much you want to push, like how much you want to risk.
Exactly.
If I were a D1 driver, I don't know, I'd Q3 probably, because like you're in Q3, the lowest you can get is P10. So I mean, you're already into the top 10 fastest. So just give it full beans in Q3. Like take all the curve, put the gas, 2 seconds before you would, but then again, it's risky. So
I I do agree, but we don't have a full qualifying this weekend, so
true,
I feel
it's short
like
quality.
it's
Well, if you're in the
there's
top 10, then.
opportunity for things to be there's many opportunities for things to be a little bit shaken up here. Like you said, like it's a tight balance for where you want to push, how much you want to push, and everybody's fighting for the exact same amount of space to qualify here. So getting that window, maximizing it, it's going to be a lot more pressure on the drivers than usual. So yeah, I think we may see some unusual faces towards the front of the grid or the back of the grid today.
Yeah. Because like you say, mental strength is gonna be key on this circuit. Just trying to keep it together, not make a mistake in quality, keep your gap, and also speaking of track position and points, taking a look at, well, Red Bull is already miles ahead of Ferrari and Aston, but looking at the midfield D1 constructors table, it's still pretty much everything for grabs. Mercedes, Alpine by 9 points. Mercedes and Aston Martin P3 and P4 by 10 points. And it's pretty much that consistency, like 10, 20 points between P2, P3, P4, P5, and then P6 and P9 pretty much all together. Haas is also trying to make the push for AlphaTauri. 3 points behind in 29 to 76, so I don't know. With very few rounds to go, anything can happen. So, what's your prediction, Drip? Do you think Aston Martin are gonna catch up to Ferrari, or do you think Ferrari are gonna secure their P2 spot on the constructors?
I think Ferrari's gonna be looking to solidify their P2 spot here. They've been having fairly more consistent performance out of their drivers as of late. Aston had a really strong performance in that regard at the start of the season, but
True.
lately they've been getting a little bit out of whack, so to speak. So hopefully, well, not hopefully, but I think Ferrari is hoping that they can lock out P2 But Mercedes, Alpine, they're going to be nipping at the back of Aston Martin. There's with 5 races left to go. We still have 1 sprint race weekend left, so that's going to be quite a lot of points there, and that is the last round. So I think I
True.
think P3, P4 in this championship may come down to that last round. Those teams are very tight there, but Ferrari might be locking out P2 pretty early.
Yeah, like you say, I mean, if they continue to have this momentum, I think they can be a strong challenger for P2. But I don't know. I think Aston Martin. I mean, they have 2 really fast drivers, and I think they're gonna show up these last 4 or 5 rounds on the championship. But moving on to drivers, I mean, P1 is basically, I mean, drivers is basically wrapped up, unless Hudson misses out and Jeffrey Lawler goes P1, then it's pretty much Hudson Pool and Red Bull who are gonna take the D1 championship. So early congrats to him if nothing happens, and I'm eager to see how the rest of the championship pans out. I mean, the midfield is really tied up from P3 to P10. Anything can happen, and yeah, I'm eager to see who's gonna be best of the rest. Indeed.
Definitely. There's like even P2 still involved in that fight with the midfield. There's a 67 point gap between P1 and P2. So there's got to be some severe errors on Hudson's part here to really lose that championship. He's had 1 race where he didn't win, which was Belgium, but he still took the fastest lap and made it known that he's going to come back, and finished 2nd in the following race. So I think I think he's good, but P2 through, I'd say, all the way back to P8, that's only 40 points.
Yeah.
That's about 1 win separates that field. Like that can all flip around. Both Ferraris are in there, and then 1 of every other constructor, minus Haas, Alpha, and Alpha, as well as Williams. But like there's a lot can happen here in these last few races. Duncan's been putting on some better performances here.
He has.
In the back half for Red Bull, helping them win that championship. So we'll see if maybe he can jump some of these drivers here. I very well could with just another podium position there.
Yeah.
Only 7 points back of the driver in front of him.
Like you say, I mean, drivers are going to be on their toes, and so are engineers. I mean, it's all about strategy, because we saw last race that there were wets, and I mean there was rain, and some drivers they pit for full wets and then for inter. So I mean they wasted an extra pit stop, where some other drivers they kind of read their engineers they read a bit different the situation, and they managed to avoid an extra pit stop, which is a lot of time not nowadays, like 17-20 seconds. So
can't afford that.
Can't afford that. Exactly. Not on Zandvoort as well, because lap times are what 1:13ish, 14ish.
Just over a minute. That extra pit stop puts your lap down.
And then I mean, in terms of qualifying, I'm thinking 110s, 111s.
I think we'll see a 9 or
1,
8.
yeah, perhaps. I mean, these guys are aliens basically.
There's a few drivers here that know the track well. We all got to race the layout last year, so there's a lot of track knowledge here.
No surprises. True.
There's no surprises minus the car, and the extra downforce of this car, I feel, can yield a lot of opportunities with the right driver behind the wheel.
Completely agree. I mean, I'm eager to see these D1 drivers step on the grid on the track, and yeah, let's see how all these race goes for Red Bull, Ferrari, and Aston Martin, which are fighting for important things here. So without further ado, ladies and gents, grab something to eat, something to drink, and yeah, Division 1 Round 8 Zandvoort is coming right up.
are here with Zoom Racing League Division 1 action. I'm your host tonight, Buffalo Trace. We might go in Zandvoort for our very own Dutch Grand Prix. 2.6 mile track, home nation of Max Verstappen, with 14 turns, 2 DRS zones, and of course their signature bank corners being a ton of speed into the main straight, down into turn 1. Unequivocally the best passing zone on the circuit. I'm joining the booth tonight with the one and only John Ranger. John, awesome job last week with Seb filling in while I was unable to make it. You guys ran an awesome broadcast. What are some of the things you're looking for today in Zandvoort? How are the standings looking?
Thanks very much. Very nice of you. I followed a little bit of on your example, old friend. So I'm honest, in Monza, we had a great race. And for the second week in a row in Monza, we had weather just completely turn things around in regards to the grid standings. And it had quite a significant effect, both in the driver standings and in the constructor standings. Running you quickly through the driver standings, we still have Hudson Poole with a very significant lead. Ian Kreger, who did not start in Italy and was also absent tonight, lost his P2 position in the driver standings to Jeffrey Lawler in the Aston Martin. So we have an Aston Martin in P2 who's had a great run finishing P3 in Monza. And the winner of the Monza race, not a Hudson Poole actually, Eric Carvalho and the Mercedes, both Mercedes drivers had an absolutely outstanding run in Monza, making the perfect calls during the safety car. Just as the safety car was beginning and there was the rain that had started as well, they made the first calls to go into for enters, and that just played into their hands perfectly. So Eric Carvalho got the win out of that one, and that made him jump from P7 in the driver's standings all the way up to P4. So that's a significant change and quite a rise. He's looking potentially at taking Ian Krieger's P3 to become third place in the drivers championship at that moment. Otherwise, we had Jason Pelter and Duncan that had okay races. They were a little bit further behind than maybe I've expected. Luke Locklear, who's closing in by a single point to Duncan McCamick. So in P6 and P7, those are both drivers who their races are going to be significantly impacted by the results. So they're sitting at 104 points, Duncan, and 103 points with Luke Locklear. He's got to stay out of penalties. He was heavily penalized in Belgium. It's interesting to note also from the steward's point of view, the drivers only had 2 tickets during Monza, so an absolutely great effort by all these Division 1 drivers for keeping it clean. If you continue out throughout, we had Peter Giordano, who had a decent race and is sitting in P8. Maxim Bollier in P9, who could have had a better result, to be honest. Unfortunately, he had a bit of a hiccup there with Hudson Poole, a bit of an impact, and sent him into the wall. To which he's later admitted it was of his own fault there, but he had an amazing race there with Eric Carvalho there and the other Mercedes. So he's on P9 in the Drivers' Championship, and Major Castleman rounds out the top 10 of the Drivers' Championship. He's also right there behind Maxim Bollier. So those are really like the top 10 of the notable changes. We've got Aaron Altmaier and the Aston Martin, who honestly could be doing a lot better on the track, doing great on qualifying, but once it comes to the race starts, he could be a little bit more performant. And then from then on, we have a lot of drivers who are rather new, or some drivers who haven't had a lot of points this season so far. We've also had plenty of new drivers that have just joined the league in Division 1. So we have Magnussen Cube, who's been there for 2 races now, I believe. Justin Clark as well. AJ Jackson in a McLaren. Brendan Jettle, who's going to be a new full-time driver for Haas. We have Marc-Olivier Bastien, who is an Alfa Romeo driver, and Stelios Repas, who's going to take a full-time seat in AlphaTauri. So those are new drivers we could be looking at for tonight, and who are looking to right away make an impact. We've seen reserve drivers make an impact very, very quickly in their first drive. So we'll see what these guys can do, if they could pull a little bit of a Nick De Vries here kind of a situation. And to round out the information here for the Constructors' Championship, well, we're still looking at Red Bull and Ferrari P1 and 2, but there has been a switch. P3 belonged to Alpine, but after the last week's weekend's race, Alpine has dropped to P5, giving way to Aston Martin and Mercedes, who's actually crawled up quite a significant a lot of points there, and are now sitting P4 at 210. Other than that, it's status quo between the other drivers, the other constructors there. So the biggest change was Alpine dropping down to P5, and Aston Martin and Mercedes climbing up a spot.
Yeah, John, hey, appreciate that rundown. Yeah, 6 new drivers, a lot of new faces, really clean racing last week in Monza, in the rain, no less. Typically a track associated with a ton of tickets, but these D1 guys kept it clean and in tough conditions, and the Mercs especially had an incredible day. As the first laps start coming in, Hudson Poole takes provisional pole with a 1:10.5, followed closely by Major Castleman and Duncan McCamick so far in your top 3. Both Alfa Romeos, 2 newcomers, currently holding P4 and P5. Love to see that. No bias on my side at all. As just about a little over 50% of the field has set a lap. I know that Luke Locklear was one of the first ones out. We were riding on with him, and he got hit with some traffic and had to back out. So Luke will most likely be coming around now for his first heater, and he'll be looking to go towards the top. I think Dago is serving a qualification ban, hence his early retirement. So he will line up at the back of the grid once all the times are set.
Can confirm, absolutely. So already we're having dry weather for the qualies. I'm gonna go take a look at the pits down there, see if there's talk to some engineers, see if there's gonna be some rain coming for the race, and I'll be right back with you in a minute.
Appreciate that. While John takes on the weather, we'll ride on here with Luke Locklear for Sector 1 of his first heater. Got to hug it really tight here into Turn 1, into the tricky section, the first of the banked corners here in Zandvoort, around Turn 3 and into Turn 4. Really tough, narrow track, difficult to pass on throughout the entire length of the lap. The only realistic spot, really, I think, for an overtake is down that stretch. We're on with Luke, and he's at a purple Sector 1 already as he goes into Turn 8. Really important to carry as much speed as you can here in 9 through into 10, which is the second of the DRS zones on the circuit. So it's a little bit short. I don't think we'll see too many overtakes between turns 10 and 11, but we'll see as Luke gets going in here into Sector 3 to set his first heater. His Alpine teammate has provisional P2 with a 1:10.7. And as Luke comes around those banked corners in turn 13 and 14, carrying as much speed as possible into the front straight, we are going to be watching that turn throughout the entirety of the race for some side-to-side action. And he lines up next to his teammate, Luke Locklear, provisional P2 with a 1:10.6, and that's the lap that he wanted to get out last time. I'm with Aaron Altmaier here, who looks like he was getting ready to set another heater. That one was a non-competitive lap. Let's hop on here with the AlphaTauri of Stelios Ripas. New driver, believe this is his first race in Zoom Racing League, and it looks like he's on a heater now. There's yellow in Sector 1, just some cars moving over. We'll be on with Stelios as he goes into Sector 3, and this is brand new for him, right? Let's see where his times kind of shake out with the rest of the D1 drivers as he comes around turn 13, carrying as much speed as he can through the banked corners, taking the tight inside line before fanning out towards the left edge of the circuit. What is Stelios going to get? He's got a 1:11.3. Good for P12. Not bad for your first heater in D1 here in ZRL. Good lap. Peter looking like he got in a little bit of trouble, currently in P17 with a not too competitive time of 11.6. Not sure if he has damage, but he will probably have to head back into the pits. We'll hop in behind him with Eric McNerney, who I believe just set his 1:11.9. Eric, a last-minute reserve for Williams, so they're grateful to have a guy in the seat. They were looking at a no-show, and Eric comes to the rescue. Currently in P18, but we'll look for him to improve. Eric's former D1 driver. He can certainly keep pace with a lot of these guys. Eric Carvalho in a little bit of trouble here in Sector 3. Looks like he may have carried a little too much speed coming out of 13. He'll probably dive right into the pits. He's currently P7, so not a bad time now, but he'll try to follow up his big win last week with something a little more further up the grid. So we'll look for Eric to come out here in a little bit. Hudson is on another outlap now as he crosses into Sector 2. He'll look to improve upon his provisional pole time of a 1:10.5. Let's watch the Mercedes get out of the way of Hudson. We watch him getting through Sector 2. Let's hop in with someone on a heater here. We'll go into Justin Clark, a.k.a. Atlas, newer driver in the Alfa Romeo, taking over for Jack Pemberton, of course, who longtime league member, moving to reserve for the rest of this season, of course, focusing on school. Team's lucky to have Justin Clark in the seat as his teammate Marc-Olivier Bastien sends a 1:10.7 and he's P3. So the Alfa Romeo is looking super quick early on in the session with a couple of times in the 1:10s. I'm curious to see as the track evolves if we'll start to see some times maybe in the low 1:10s by the likes of Hudson Poole and Luke Locklear as they go out for additional heaters right now. We'll stay on with Justin as he goes through the end of Sector 2 into the second DRS zone. Tricky turns right here at 11 and 12. You can mount that curb just a little bit. If you time it right and don't floor on the throttle, it doesn't unsettle the car. So as Justin comes along turns 13 and 14, he'll look to improve upon his P7 time. Carry as much speed as he can into turn 14. Notice a lot of drivers taking different lines on the exit, and he bails out. So he didn't invalidate, but he must have not been happy with the trajectory of that lap. Let's hop in with Hudson. Looks like he bailed on that one. Major Castleman as well. Looks like Luke might still be on the heater. John, early on, we're seeing the Alpines look strong. They're currently sitting in P2, P3. Luke getting a little bit of tow from Major Castleman. They look good today.
They have to. They have a lot of pressure again this weekend. I feel like I'm repeating myself. There's a couple of weekends in a row that we say these drivers have a lot of pressure. They seem to be able to either end their races at very high positions or they're all the way in the back almost. It's rare. They have a little bit of trouble staying consistent. As both drivers dive into the pits, and I've got a full weather report here. We're gonna have an 100% dry race, both for quali and for the race.
A little bit of a reprieve for the D1 guys. They've battled weather the past couple weeks. Run with AJ Jackson, another newcomer in the McLaren as he spins out going into turn 7. That's a tricky one. You carry a lot of speed there, and you try to just really engine brake kind of if you can. And it really defines your entire sector, especially dealing with DRS zone. And John, some of these curbs are okay. Some of them are like ice, and that one kind of sent AJ flying.
Yeah, this is quite a tricky track, and it's really a roller coaster. Kind of makes me think a little bit of Portimao in Portugal. It kind of has a kind of roller coaster vibes, but really have to make sure you get your apex right. It's not the kind of track that if you miss your apex, you come out of there really unscathed. You could really ruin your car in different areas, and you know. The lack of passing opportunities, as we've seen in the earlier divisions this weekend so far, I think drivers end up getting impatient and being behind somebody and trying to find the perfect opportunity. As we've mentioned, coming out of turn 14 could be a great opportunity for overtaking, but there's that chicane right there in turns 12 and 13, where sometimes we'll see drivers try to dive bomb a little bit. Got a couple incidents during the weekends being reported there, so drivers are going to have to be patient, and this is Division 1, and I keep repeating it every weekend. These are the best of the best that we have here, so are the guys going to be patient, or as the season goes on and they're fighting for every little point, maybe these guys are going to be a little bit less patient, and we might see some action that way?
Yeah, I was on with Duncan before, and you were talking about speed coming out of turn 14, and he had a heck of a lot of it. He's currently in P3 now, less than a tenth off his teammate Hudson Poole, so it looks like the Red Bulls have been putting in a lot of practice at this track, and it's paying off because they look really quick early on, as opposed to the Ferraris, they're kind of being saved by Dane Clem here, who's looks like he may be up slightly on his time of P7, but Peter with a P13, a 111.0, we're not used to seeing him down there in quali. I wonder if he had a chance to practice as much this week as usual.
I've heard Peter's had a little bit of issues with his game, and I think that's hindered on his practice time this week. So no, I think it's he's taking it out for a first spin probably this weekend. I don't know if he spent a little bit of time yesterday on track, so I think that might explain why he's got a P13. But Peter's the kind of guy that, you know, he might just give him a little bit of a extra downforce on the front wing or a little something, or get out there and still pull in a really good lap. Noticeable drivers, you know, we have Retrograde who's filling in for Ferrari for Ian Krieger, who's just put at P4.
He did.
And when we're looking at our other full-time seaters, we have an Alfa Romeo in P6 with Bastien putting it up there. So far so good for the new drivers.
Yeah, they're looking great. Yeah, new driver, like going down the list, we got P4 with Dane, P6 from Marc Olivier, AJ, Justin Clark is relatively new, right? So that's, of the 6 new guys, you got 4 of them in the top 10. So they're looking like they can certainly hang. And then you got a lot of reserves, right? So Eric, of course, coming to the rescue of Williams reserving. And we have a new provisional pole sitter, Luke Locklear, now in the low 110s with a 110.4. And the Alpines have been split by the Red Bulls. So they'll be next to each other on rows 1 and 2. Early on, though, where are the Mercs and where are the Aston Martins? We're used to seeing them up. Well, of course, Dago taking the penalty, right? But we're used to seeing them up there, John. And so far, Era's the best with the P9.
Yeah, and Era had a bit of a spin moment earlier, and I think we're seeing a Haas just behind him and coming out of turn 11 that had a spin as well. So no, that's so far it's not been the best time, but I think he's up on his time. He's just about to cross the finish line, so we'll see if he could improve on his 110.9. He's actually diving to the pits.
He dived in. While we're talking, I think Aaron Altmaier just secured P6. So we're on with Justin Clark, who improved by 0.2, but still remains in P8. So the Alfa Romeos with a row 4 lockout right now. Eric Carvalho is retired. Ooh, a little bit of traffic there in Sector 1 as some guys getting around. Eric Carvalho is retired. Dane Clem has retired. I don't know if they're just tired in the pits just to do it, or just because we're coming out of the end section, they didn't want to put in another lap.
Going to be a lot of traffic. They probably think they're not going to be able to have a fast lap around there. There's a lot of cars out there, so, and this is a track, it's not a very large track, it's not very wide, so it's quite possible to impede on some drivers there, and
Yeah.
it could happen.
You're right with Jason Pelter, who you were alluding to the standings earlier, John. And Jason's really quietly, like, I think he's P4 or P5 you mentioned, and just putting in a lot of consistent high finishes. I mean, we saw it last year when he was driving for the Alfa Romeo guys. He was always up there in the high top 10s, top 5s, and he's been super consistent this year in D1 with an increase in pace. So I'm kind of surprised to see him in P11, but I wouldn't be surprised if he makes up some ground in the race.
He's the kind of guy who's just so consistent during a race. So yeah, I think he'll improve on his time. He's coming up along quite some traffic. The AlphaTauri did a good job of getting out of the way there.
He did, yeah, I saw that.
So he's just about to come in across the finish line, see if we could get a better time, and that'll be it for him because there's only 30 seconds left. He doesn't have time to do a second round, and that puts him only in front of Eric Carvalho in P11 still.
Just in front. Yeah, while we're talking about that, I think Maxime Beaulieu, there's the Mercs. He puts in a 110.6. He's good for P5, knocking everyone else down. So Jason did improve, but stays P11 because of Maxime's improvement. More improvement, Marc-Olivier Bastien, P3, 110.5. Alfa Romeo's on the second row.
That's such a strong showing right off the bat with for Bastien there.
You'll love to see it.
Absolutely. For an Alfa Romeo, these guys have been struggling a little bit this season. I think having a proper driver during the whole season as well, a lot of reserves. Now this guy comes in, he's about ready to take the full-time seat and just throws his car in P3, and he's only hanging back by just about 300ths off of Hudson Pool, so it's not that far behind. He's just absolute heater of a lap there.
Yeah, that was a banger of a lap. We're on with Hudson now as he finishes up Sector 2, going into turns 11 and 12. he will try to take pole from Luke Locklear, who's currently in that position with a 1:10.4.
Looks
Little
like he's
bit of
got
traffic.
purple sector 1. Here it comes going around turn 13, and he can get wide up there on that turn.
And he did it. He did it by almost 2/10. Hudson Poole with a 1:10.3. Currently provisional pole unless anyone on track can beat him. Let's hop in with some guys. No, Maxime is pulling in the pits. There may be a Ferrari out there, I think.
I think Peter's done as well. There's Peter Giordano. He is done indeed, though. So that is it.
Peter's done.
And I mean, should I be surprised?
Yeah, I mean, with Hudson, I mean, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
He timed that perfectly, you know what I mean? He got, track evolution is a huge factor in this game. I think I've noticed it more in 22 than in F1 21.
Yeah.
And Hudson timed that perfectly, crossing the line right before the session ended. Looked great.
Not only is it crossing the line, but it's figuring out when to take that car out so he doesn't have any traffic in front of him or have anybody that impedes him. Because this track is something that happened a lot during the previous divisions.
Right. So here we are, end of quali here in Zandvoort. Hudson Poole takes pole, followed by Luke Locklear, Marc-Olivier Bastien, Major Castleman, Duncan Mechanic round out your top 5. Maxime, Dane, AJ, Aaron Altmaier, and Peter Giordano round out your top 10. So some surprises up there. Great to see some new guys up there as well. Looks really good. I think we just got Guac in here too in the other Haas seat. So hopefully he joined in time enough to get going for the race. He will probably start P20 if he did get in on time. That was a pretty good session. I thought we were going to see some low 110s. That was some quick laps.
A lot of quick laps, and now it's all gonna be about that all of sector 1. So normally when these races and the past couple of races we've had, you know, turn 1 is a bit of a hot seat there. You got to be careful and watch out from behind and besides you and not bump anybody off track. Now we're gonna have that for quite a number of turns. I think what's one of the more difficult turns is turns 3. That bank turn, you can see some cars on colder tires. If you don't do the proper your formation that properly, it could come and bite you back in the rear at that corner there. So these drivers are gonna have to be absolutely professional to begin the race.
And that line is so crucial, right? Because I mean, you know, they call turns 4, 5, and 6, but it's really kind of a curvy, almost straight, right? You can make up a ton of time or lose a ton of time depending on your exit in turn 3. And in some of the earlier divisions, you're right, we saw some drivers almost get aggressive as you see these guys go out for the formation lap, but they kind of got aggressive and tried to pass going into turn 2, going into turn 3, and that can really put your entire sector 1 at risk if you get a poor exit.
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing already the whole of top 10, at the exception of Peter Giordano being on medium tires. And then most of the drivers at the bottom 10 are on hard tires, except for a couple of guys. So the usual strategies we've seen so far in F1 22, which is from medium to hards or hards to mediums, depending on what you think your race is going to be able to give. And, you know, having a fast start is going to be key in this moment.
Yeah, so broadcast version of the formation lap, so everybody's tires will be at a level temperature according to everyone else behind. So we'll get the cameras going and try to see. I see a Haas at the end there. Is that someone who joined late? Or no, okay, that's
I
Brennan.
think there was supposed to be a driver, but he just left apparently.
We'll ride on with Major Castleman as we have 5 lights out, and they hold him for a bit, and away we go. Major looking at the gearbox of Luke Locklear, who started in P2. The Alfa Romeo gets a good start. Luke Locklear goes around the inside of Hudson Poole going into turn 1 and tries to take the lead. It looks like he might have it, but there's an incident, and the Alfa Romeo takes it. Hudson Poole collides with Luke Locklear. Wow, a little bit of drama early.
That's gonna be reviewed by the stewards. I could guarantee you that right off the bat.
Absolutely.
Trying to see if these guys have damage. So far, clearly looks to be okay.
Yeah, there's a
That's
McLaren around 2 in Sector 1. That's Jason Pelter. He's now in the rear. We'll ride with the other McLaren
Cool.
2, AJ Jackson, who got a solid
More
start.
drivers are out.
2 more drivers spun out. Look, who's that? That's Magnuson Cube and Peter Giordano. They must have had an incident.
Anderson Cube is the Williams missing a bit of a portion of the wing there, so he's got heavy damage already, and he put the one out on the hard. So
Yeah.
he's looked like he's left the session already. Looks like a bit of a rage quit
Frustration,
moment
maybe?
there. So
Yeah, people leaving all sorts of time. Look, so Hudson is back up in P5, so he recovered pretty nicely from that incident. We'll ride on here with Luke Locklear as Marc-Olivier Bastien comes in with P1 so far, first lead lap.
AJ in the McLaren also has damage apparently.
Oh, he was riding
Or
okay.
he's already changing wheels. It's not his wing is not being repaired, so he just switched to the hard tires there, from what I've seen.
That was interesting. Yeah, I don't know if that was a mistake and he pulled in and he didn't mean to do it, but
Is this a strategy? He's gonna try to go hard the entire race completely.
that would be pretty tough. The tire wear here can be considerable.
And I think we're gonna have Magnussen Cube because he basically Alta Ford on track. His ghost car is gonna be driving around the track the entire race. So usually we ask drivers to park the car and then retire or do it on the pits.
Yeah, that'll cause some traffic and
So-
some dirty air at the very least for a lot of the guys
Absolutely.
on track, especially that far back. We're on with Hudson. Let's take a look at the big winners and losers so far. AJ Jackson down 10 spots in the P18. He's lost the most, but of course Magnuson Cube essentially a retirement. He's down 5 spots. Big winners so far. Alex Duarte up 6, Eric McNerney up 5, Brendan Jettle up 5 as well, along with Dane Clem up P4. We got a Ferrari in P3, and they love to see it.
I've got to give a shout out to this guy Marc-Olivier Bastien. He's in P1, did a great qualifying lap. He's already in P1. Kind of inherited from the Hudson Pool and Luke Locklear incident there. But, I mean, this guy's got to have nerves of steel to
Yeah.
be P1 already in Division 1 in his very first race.
I mean, he took evasive maneuvers, and yeah, now he's leading, right? So he had to think quick. So something's kind of developing here. Maxime seems to be just slightly off pace of the top 3 guys. He's already out of DRS range. That's going to hold up Hudson considerably. He needs to pass Maxime as quick as he can. He may look to make a move here. Hudson's already halfway down on battery. We usually see him managing battery exceptionally well during the race, but with the incident, he's had to catch up. So this is going to have a huge impact later on in the race. He's going to try to make this move right now. No?
Yeah, Maxim's got DRS, but the battery advantage goes to Hudson Pool.
Ooh. He's already got fastest lap. Maxime, oh, a little bit of a
Little
bump
bit
from
wide.
Maxime. That was close. I thought there was going to be another incident there, but now if Hudson can stick to the back of Dane and get DRS, he can maybe just follow along and try to recover some battery. Maxime was dumping there, trying to hold that position. He's already at 11%.
He's giving it his all there, but indeed he doesn't have the same kind of pace. So is this a question of downforce? Is it just a question of raw pace from the driver himself? He's doing what he can out there, but P5 with the Mercedes, he'll be looking to maybe climb up the spot, but sooner or later I think he might find himself with Duncan all over his gearbox.
Yeah, let's hop on with Stelios in the AlphaTauri. Both AlphaTauris holding their own pretty well after, I think they would even call it a poor qualifying, but with some incidents, they find themselves now in P10, P11, and we'll find with this track that if you can kind of stick with the DRS trains, you can, we'll see some guys glued to the same position for a long time because overtaking happens so seldom. So AlphaTauris are in a good position. I kind of like where they're at, and if they can hang on to the back of Aaron and use that DRS, they may have a pretty good finish for him.
I think the major mistakes we're going to see later on in the race, because given the nature of the track, when the tires start getting used up and worn out, your cars tends to just suddenly snap unless you're really driving with a very high amount of downforce. So I'm curious to see how these guys are gonna be handling their car and how much their pace is gonna be affected with the worn tires as the laps go on.
Yeah, I'm on with Major Castleman, who is right up on the bumper of this Alfa Romeo in P1. He comes along turn 8, 9, and 10. Got to carry a lot of speed here. I wonder if Major Castleman will try to get squirrely here in this second DRS zone. You don't see as much passing here. I don't know if he's got the gap. He's not dumping any battery. He's going to wait to try on the main straight. So
Top
battery
three are
check.
very similar in their battery usage so
Yeah.
far, but Hudson Pool's been harvesting his. Is still halfway up on battery and gets a really nice cornering out there on turns 12 and 13. So we'll try to take advantage of it right now.
Great broadcast angle of those banked corners as they go down there on the front stretch. Hudson Pool already back in the party, but Luke Locklear is kind of stuck in traffic. He finds himself in P8 behind Alfa Romeo of Justin Clark. So, you know, while Luke Locklear is still in kind of recovery race territory for him, we're not used to him in P8. Hudson Pool's already in P4 and could be challenging for the lead very soon.
Most definitely, and that's something we saw back there in Monza last weekend, where he had a bit of a unfortunate strategy call with the rain starting just as the safety car was pulling in. So he was the first one to dive into pits in such a situation. That kind of made him drop back down nearly to P10 or P11, if I'm not mistaken, and then he drove all the way back up to P2 in that race. So that's something, you know, he still got 30 laps to go. You know, this guy's got incredible pace. I think the top three drivers, however, are doing great and keeping him there kind of for a bit of a while. They're fighting each other, trying to find a pace, but we're not going side to side really, so they're not losing too much of their raw pace at the moment, just following each other in the DRS train.
Yeah,
And I think we're going to see Hudson Pool try to make another move here on retrograde.
we'll see it. He's got the battery going already with the DRS. He's going to pull along the right side of retrograde, aka Dane Clem. He's going to make that pass clean even before the turn. He goes in, keeps it nice and tight there, turn 1. Hudson Pool has P3. Couple midfield battles going on too. Last lap, Eric McNerney and Brendan Jettle and Stelios Repas were in a really nice fight for P11. Eric McNerney holding his own in the Williams, currently in P13. Got some fights in him too, so doing really well in reserving for the Williams guys today.
Yeah, quick update. I'm looking at Jeffrey Lawler in P17 right now. We know he started from the back of the race due to a qualifying ban. Magnussen Cube and AJ Jackson had quite unfortunate beginning of the races, especially on the McLaren, and on top of that, having a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit stop. Jeffrey Lawler is only sitting in P17, despite Peter Giordano and Jason Pelter also having some moments before earlier in the race. So I think he's probably had a bit of an issue, or he just simply does not have the pace so far.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that as well. I wonder if there was an incident that we kind of just didn't know about. I don't know. Here, maybe he pitted too. We can. No, if we check the pit stops, nope, Dago hasn't pitted, so don't really see a reason. As there's a move having for the lead, Major Castleman making the move on Marc Olivier, and he's got it. He makes it stick through turn 1, and the Alfa Romeo finds himself in P2, and now will be under pressure from the Red Bull of Hudson Pool. He gets right on him on the bank corner of turn 3, gets a great exit. He can see that the Alfa Romeo is running low on battery. The Hudson's going to make a move soon.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what their tires are looking like even for these guys. I think some of them may have better tire management than others, also depending on how they're running their pressures. So that's maybe what we're seeing. Hudson Pool had a bit of a squirrely moment right behind there of Bastian. Bastian's going to try to keep in the DRS zone of Major Castleman. If he could do that, he'll be able to stick it for a moment. And that is AJP18, who's had a moment on turn 14 there. So I don't know if there's damage, but it's so not his race for the McLaren driver right now.
No, he's a tough one. Could be first race jitters, so you know we'll give him a pass for it, and if he finishes, he'll still get points. Right, we're on with Hudson, who's got so much pressure on him. There's another yellow in sector 1. No, that might be just the McLaren going around into the pits.
Yep.
He's retiring. Hudson Pool now without battery. He's going to go on the inside. It's going to be tough to make it before turn 1. He's got to go on the inside. He pushes the Alfa Romeo wide. And Marc Olivier makes it stick. P2.
New guy sticking it to the Hudson Hornet. That's gonna really pick on his pride there for Hudson Pool, but it's not over yet. Bastion's gonna be quick to learn that Hudson Pool has got one of the best paces I've seen in F1 so far.
I mean, yeah, it's incredible. This guy can really hang with the best of the best here, in between Major Castleman and Hudson Pool. This may provide a little bit of opportunity for Major Castleman to push away if Hudson and Marc Olivier fight for much longer. And don't forget about Retrograde, about Dane Clem here in P4, hanging around. That gap hasn't gotten much more than 5/10 from what I've seen, if even that high. So he's just biding his time. He's got 24% battery remaining, but battery for the leaders, let's go through all of them, is kind of at a premium. John, they're all down. They're all below like 25%.
Not the best track. There's not very high speed braking zones on this track, so it's a little bit difficult to harvest batteries here, and that's what we're seeing. Most of the drivers are at 20% or if not below, and when we're looking at the race overall so far, the whole track has seemed to have bunched up into 3 separate groups. So we've had P1 to P4 in the first group, and then from Maxime Beaulieu down to Luke Locklear is in the second group.
Right.
And I was gonna say Alex Duarte all the way down to, I think it was Aaron Altmaier. Aaron Altmaier just had a spin off in or Jeffrey Lawler actually is in the
It
pits.
was Dago,
He
yeah.
spun off. Yeah, so he's going in for a change on the laps, and the other Aston Martin is in P17.
Watching
Horrendous
this
race so far for our Green Boys.
Yeah, we're watching this incredible fight here for P2 between the Red Bull and the Alfa Romeo. Hudson is just getting so close here to that gearbox. One thing we missed too, Aaron Altmaier trying perhaps the undercut of the century. He's already pitted for hard tires. He will try to go 26 laps on those hards. He's currently in P16. It's a great track for an undercut, but that might be a lot.
The issue with the undercut in this track is you have to make sure you keep yourself near another driver, so you can, once you undercut, you still have DRS. If other drivers are bunched up and they keep on the DRS, they'll keep crawling up to you and they'll stick it back to you.
Yeah, they'll pull away, yeah, and he's got that 23-second gap too, so his teammate didn't do much to help him out either, so no DRS at all. 11 laps in. Typically, we'll see guys who started on the medium tire pit around lap 15, 16, and if they started on the hard, probably lap 20.
It's a very aggressive undercut from Aaron Altmaier, so I'm very curious. Maybe he's wishing there's going to be a late safety car with the guys having tires being worn out there, so we'll see where that gives, but kind of doubting that strategy so far.
Let's hop in with another midfield battle again. The fight for P11 between Eric McNerney and Brendan Jettle. Eric takes the cake this time. He finds P11, but they've been going at each other for a lot. There hasn't been a lot of midfield action so far, but these two have been having some good racing.
Yeah, back of the pack there. You're not used to seeing these 3 guys so far down the grid. Eric Carvalho,
Wow.
Jason Pelter, and Peter Giordano, P13, 14, 15. They're out there fighting it as if they were in the top 3, but no, they're way far back. So that's not what we're used to seeing from those boys who are also direct rivals in regards to both driver standings and constructor championship.
Yeah, it's weird seeing them down so far. We were just talking about Jason has been consistent. The Ferraris were on the rise. I don't know if Duncan may have had Duncan has spun.
We lost Duncan.
Duncan had an incident going into turn 7, and his tires are hot and he can't get around. The stream is on him too. He's taking his time, no resetting the track. Looks good. He got through clean, but he finds himself in P15. And maybe he'll try some sort of undercut himself in a little bit to try to change the game. But we were on with Peter, and Peter's got a lot of battery. Let's check some of the guys around him. He's got the battery advantage. I mean, he doesn't know that while he's driving, but he may have to make a move soon if he hopes to have any sort of recovery tonight. Top 3 guys still locked. We're still led by Major Castleman, Marc Olivier, Hudson Pool, Dane Clem, Maxime Beaulieu. Round out your top 5. Maxime a little bit further from the top 4 guys. There's a 2.7 second gap between Dane and himself. And he's got a little mini DRS train behind him consisting of Justin Clark and Luke Locklear.
You know, so far both AlphaTauri guys are putting in a great race, respectively, with Stelios and Alex Duarte. So they're kind of starting to pull away from Erica McNerney there in P10, who's been reserving for Williams, who's haven't said much about him so far, but he's doing great. He's leading the kind of third pack there, and it's that third pack of drivers is kind of splitting up there. We're seeing the AlphaTauris are off the DRS zone, so they're gonna start pulling away, I'm pretty sure.
Hudson's going to make a move here on the inside of turn 1. He's going to try again. He drained the battery. He keeps it nice and tight on the inside. Is he going to make this one stick? There's enough room for the Alfa Romeo on the outside, but I don't know if he has a pace. Goes on the inside of turn 2. Really tough. Now the Alfa Romeo had the better line for a second, but Hudson's got the pace. And they're side by side going into 4, 5, and 6.
Absolutely nuts. Both of these drivers' cars are overweight with their big brass balls. That was side by side, wheel to wheel driving there. What a beautiful scene between Hudson Pool and Marc-Olivier Bastien.
It was
absolutely
super
a
clean.
bit of tire rubbing, but that's the kind of thing you expect in D1 driving.
That was just good racing, right? A little bit of trading paint, I think, there. And even though they're going at it, that gap now between Dame and P5 and Maxime is already 3.4 seconds. So Maxime, I don't know if you can call it parking the bus because he's still got incredible pace, but that's kind of what he's doing as far as in the leaders. But I want to hop on board with Stelios because while he's in P8, right, this is his first race, he's in the lead as far as the hard tire runners go. So for his strategy, he's kind of the leader of the pack. I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah, a lot of these new drivers, it seems quite lately we've been having a lot of high-quality drivers being attracted to ZRL. I'm not going to speculate as the reasons why the reason is these drivers are coming to us, but a lot of times we're going to see reserve drivers or brand new drivers coming in and pulling in great strategies. And I'm seeing Eric McNerney just getting a speeding and a pit lane
That's tough.
penalty, so that's so harsh on him. That's not what he wanted. Stelios is kind of like starting to pull away from Alex Duarte as well, so I don't know if it's because his teammate had a bit of a moment behind him, or if he just started to pull the metal to the metal and try to get some gap between both drivers. Both of them are on the hard tires, so they can't pit at the same lap right now.
No, they can't. They'll have to separate it a little bit, but we're seeing some guys come in for the undercut. Eric, of course, came in. He got the 5-second penalty. Luke Locklear has started his pit stop strategy. He's currently in P13, but he's right on the gearbox of Duncan, trying to keep it clean. And does so nicely.
Both of these drivers were side by side for a moment there, kind of had the same moment as Hudson Pool and Bastien earlier, but they kept it clean as well.
Yeah, the tire advantage for Luke has got to be pretty incredible, although it is his first lap on the hard, so they probably got to get warmed up. But Duncan's on 14-lap old mediums, and he had that moment, right? So his tire conditions probably aren't great. Justin Clark going into the pits for the Alfa Romeo. He'll begin his strategy, and we're going to see some guys start to come in. I wonder if Marc-Olivier will come in the next go-around. He's struggling to keep pace with Hudson and keep within DRS range as Hudson starts to put pressure on Major Castleman.
Now the question is, which of these drivers are going to go for the undercut first? Is it Hudson? Is it Bastien? Is it going to be Retrograde, or shall I say the Dane Clem? So these guys are probably thinking about it right now.
Yeah, it could be a little follow the leader too, right? So they're all on different teams, so they could essentially, if Castleman pulls in, they could react to it and try to do the same thing. I wonder if we'll see a little bit of that. That gap now between Hudson and Marc-Olivier Bastien is now a second. So I think it's a good time for him to come in. Dane Clem had a little bit of a moment coming out of turn 12. Everybody low on DRS. Castleman is in. Hudson stays out. Marc-Olivier stays out. Dane Clem stays out. So Major Castleman may have successfully pulled off an undercut here if it pans out. Maxime goes in to start his strategy. And very soon, I think you'll find Stelios, if the strategy doesn't go awry, he'll technically be leading in his first ZRL race.
He potentially can, but while we had behind him his teammate Alex Duarte, now we're seeing a Mercedes fighting right now side by side with Alex Duarte and
Oh.
Jason Pelter right behind.
Both
So
on
this
16
guy's
lap,
just
hard
bunched
tires.
up.
Jason Pelter's got a great view of all the action as he tries to come to the party too. He'll follow closely along the gearbox of Alex Duarte, eyeing that P7 as he goes into turn 9. Got to carry a lot of speed here into 10, into the DRS soon. Is he going to try to make a move here? He's got 27% battery, which is pretty good compared to a
Going
lot
for
of
it.
what we've seen. He's going to go for it. He's coming along the inside of turn 11. Does he have enough? He goes along the curb. He goes a little wonky. Ample room left, I think, by Alex. Well done by Jason to keep that clean. Just didn't have enough that go around.
Very difficult to keep it clean when you try to dive bomb on that corner. We've had multiple incidents throughout our divisions where that's happening, and he used some ERS for that, and that's going to leave him completely dry trying to go past him on the straight. And will he be able to do that? Tries to make a move on the inside, keeps it clean, and Alex
Oh,
Duarte
there's
has
trouble
not
coming
been
out of the
fighting.
pits. Trouble coming out of
Oh.
the pits. Stelios may have had an incident with, it looks like Marc Olivier, and maybe it was just him. But Marc Olivier had lost a position to Dane Clem in the pits. Hudson had retained P2.
Both drivers have damage. Marc Olivier has wing damage, as well as Stelios.
No. So what do you do here, Joe? He has to go in. He has to switch tires. Do you put the softs on for a little stint and then go put these hards back on for another? You have to do that. You can't put the mediums back on.
Can't put the mediums back on. He's got no choice but to go for the softs. That's definitely what he's gonna have to do, I'm pretty sure. And you're gonna hope there's gonna be a safety car sooner than later at this point.
Yes, Stelios will have to come in, and he's got damage, but he's got to pit anyway, so he won't have to do an additional stop. But what a horrible turn of events for Marc Olivier. As what was
This
looking
just comes
into
to show that
just
when
an incredible
throughout an
race.
entire race, you could be leading the race at some point or fighting for P3. It doesn't take much to ruin your race. Now, I say ruin, we're only coming up to lap 20 here, so that could be quite relative here. So he's going to go in for the pits. Both drivers are going to the pits. So both drivers who had an incident are both going to be on a pit race to switch their tires and switch their front wings, and they're going to be essentially racing each other coming out
It will be.
again.
Yeah, really curious on the tire choice here from Marc Olivier. Let's see what he has.
Going for the
Alex
softs.
Duarte loses a position to Justin Clark, but I think he can see that because of the tires. Peter Giordano finds himself in P6, but him, Jason Pelter, and Era are up top, but they haven't pitted yet. So their strategy will probably begin in the next lap or two. They could start thinking about an undercut themselves. It's easier to go further on the mediums on the second stint, obviously because of track evolution, fuel load, a little easier to make them stretch, but we're seeing some gaps now here in the lead. Some guys are getting out of DRS range. Hudson almost had a moment coming out of turn 12.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about here, where cold tires or worn tires, some of these turns could be rather tricky and could really cause some havoc there throughout the race. So, and I'm
There's a
seeing
yellow in
another driver.
sector-
There's a yellow. Was that Luke Locklear? Is in the Alpine who's
is.
lost it?
Now Luke Locklear's on 4-lap old hards. I hope he doesn't have damage. He's got no ERS, no DRS in sight. Driver ahead of him, Duncan McCamick, is on 19-lap old mediums. He will be pitting. He's on 19-lap old mediums. What do you think he's trying to do there, John?
He's praying for a safety car. There's a bunch of yellows that are being thrown out there. There's been an
Yeah.
incident with Jettle and P15, who's had a contact with Eric McNerney, and also got penalized. He got a 5-second penalty for a severe contact with Eric McNerney.
He did. They
McNerney was
both
just
got
coming out of
them.
the pit stops.
Oh no, Eric's was from speeding in the pit lane earlier. Stelios gets the first track limit penalty we've had. I haven't seen a lot of that present so far. We'll hop in with Marc Olivier. Stelios retires. Stelios retired in the pits. And this might be a messaging issue too with a lot of these new guys, John. In ZRL, our scoring is different than actual F1. If you finish a race, if you classify, you get points. So we see some of these new guys AJ, Stelios, Magnussen Cube, having instance early on and then just kind of giving up. Hopefully they don't do that in the future because they're missing out.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a message probably coming from Duncan after this race where these guys need to stay. Like whatever points you get, you never know if there's a safety car near the end of the race that could happen. We've seen those kind of things happen, and it's just falling apart currently for AlphaTauri right now. So that's disappointing for those drivers. They need to know that they could have race points. And we're just seeing a lot of flags being thrown out in Sector 1. A lot of drivers. I think that's Marc-Olivier Bastien who had another moment
He
in
had a
turn
moment.
1 there.
He had a moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has damage or what, but his teammate, let's hop in with him, with Justin Clark, because he may soon make a move on this Ferrari. I say that because of the tire strategy. If Peter stays out. If he doesn't stay out, then he'll inherit P4, actually, if Era goes in. Era does not
Peter's
go in.
in.
Peter goes in. Justin Clark inherits P5. Eric Carvalho really trying to make these stick. I wonder what his tire wear is looking like. How far do you think you have to go to think about hard soft?
I would not give the softs too much of a try on this track. To be honest, I'm thinking. I mean, are these guys thinking of maybe going to? I'd say between lap 28, 30, nearly. Like the softs tend to drop off so quickly at some point. A lot of these corners,
laps, right?
yeah, put a lot of tension on the soft tires. You know, you do 2, 3, 4 laps, and suddenly you kind of feel like you're driving used mediums suddenly. So.
And you're gonna
Not
lose
the
time
biggest fan, and we're having another DNF. This is not going to be Bastien.
Marc Olivier retires too. He misses
Some
out.
guys
on
did
points
not
for
get the
team.
memo.
And there'll have to be a league-wide message sent out there. So now Alfa Romeo's only hope, Justin Clark in P5, closing the gap to Era. And we talked about that tire wear for a bit too, right? I think that's it. Oh, it's Marc Olivier's car is coming back out on track. I hope it doesn't start to cause issues with dirty air. Era goes into pit. Justin Clark inherits P4. He's got a 3.5 second gap or so to Dane Clem. But now Major Castleman and Hudson, while all that commotion was going on in the midfield, they kind of pulled away. Dane Clem, who was keeping space, retrograde, is now P3, 3 seconds behind Hudson, who's still on the gearbox of Major Castleman.
Yeah, so Marc-Olivier Bastien's car just parked itself to retire fully, so
Okay,
it's
it's gone
off
now.
track. But it didn't do that without getting right in the way of Justin Clark. His teammate in turn
tough.
1, Justin Clark had to go the long way around the car. Nearly wasn't sure if he could drive through or drive around or whatnot with this game, so he didn't take a chance to drove around. Took the high road off turn 1, and that cost him some time.
Yeah, it did. I mean, at least if he was going to retire, at least he retired to the pits, which is what you're kind of told to do. But I do wish he stuck it out, too, for his first
I
zero
think we're going to see a move from
classification.
Hudson Poole here. DRS down on the main straight, right behind Castleman. I think Castleman's dumping all he's got.
Ooh, oh, wow.
So close.
I thought they were really good car control by Hudson to keep that clean. Let's see what the exit looks like here out of turn 3. See if Hudson can think about something, maybe going into 7 in sector 2. Maybe not. I want to hop in with Jason Pelter. He had a really close gap to Eric Carvalho in the Mercedes ahead of him, but he's got no battery. He's going to try to make this maybe just on late braking, but no. Thinks better of it. Stays for another day. Jason Pelter still in P8. Followed by Peter Giordano. Now this is the recovery race that we all wanted. He's now on a better tire compound. He's in P9, and I think he's going to start chipping away for a solid top 10 finish. He may try to sniff P6, P5.
Wouldn't surprise me, and I think Jason Pelter, both him and Eric Carvalho went down the straight. No ERS, and Eric Carvalho had no DRS. Jason, with the DRS on his rival Mercedes, couldn't really seem to catch up to him. So I think we're seeing a major setup difference where Era's got lower downforce and higher top end speed compared to Jason Pelter.
Yeah, we're going to have a lead change here. Hudson Poole actually made the move pretty much coming out of turn 14 and made it cleanly on the stretch. He had a little bit of ERS going through that banked turn. and was able to make the move really cleanly. He also had just a great exit out of there, carried a ton of speed. So Major Castleman already 4/10 behind, already behind on battery. Hudson in a really good position here to try to stretch that gap. And maybe, just maybe, Dane Clem, retrograde, can try to chip away at that gap for P2.
Unfortunate a little bit because Hudson Poole, despite the incident with Luke Locklear there right in turn one, was able to make quite a recovery race, as we know he would do. Luke Locklear started the race in P2, and now he's finding himself essentially P6, and we're looking at the gap between him and Eric Carvalho, see if Carvalho's going to be able to cut it down. There's quite a gap there. He's just a little bit of no man's land there, Luke Locklear in P6. He's just got to do his thing and make sure to keep the gap from the Mercedes behind him, keep the gap wide open.
Yeah, which, like you were saying before, no man's land is kind of the last place you want to be on Zandvoort, right? You need that DRS to just try to keep pace with people because it's so difficult to make passes, make overtakes. So you're out of that train, it becomes hard to chip away at that gap. As I'm on, Peter Giordano almost has a moment coming out of turn 14. And he's going to lose the position to Aaron Altmaier because of it. Aaron Altmaier on 17 lap old hard tires now. And that allows Peter Giordano to retake P9. And Aaron Altmaier on a tough tire strategy. If a safety car comes out for him, I think it'd be fantastic. He could switch to soft tires and really try to shake things up.
Speaking
Another
of
yellow
safety
at
car, we have
sector
a sector 1. It looked like it was just a bit of a spin or a bit of a moment. Now we're seeing another new driver, the Haas of Jetto. He's in the pits and he's going for the soft tires now, and I think he had a penalty that he had to serve as well.
Okay.
So I don't know if he's gonna try to stretch the soft tires 10 laps, but that's gonna be what he's got to do. Don't think it's worth going back in the pits again.
No, it's certainly not. He'll have to make him work. I don't know if we'll be in puncture territory. I think we saw a puncture actually in one of the earlier divisions. The gap between P2 and P3, Major Castleman in retrograde, has actually increased now to 4 seconds as we see the field start to spread apart a little bit. Major Castleman doing a really nice job of trying to stay with Hudson. Both of them have been using battery. Hudson trying to break that DRS to Castleman so he can fully pull away, but nothing doing so far. The gap has gradually increased, but Major's done a really nice job of sticking with him for now, while managing his battery.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye a bit on Era and Jason Pelter. Jason Pelter is desperately trying to keep within DRS zone of the Mercedes driver. This is a direct rival in regards to driver championship there, and Jason, I know, wants to keep up with him, but he's struggling. He's struggling on the top end speed, and somehow Era is getting proper rotation off that car to keep away from him. So great racecraft from Eric Carvalho, who started quite further back at some point during the race.
Yeah, Eric said the Mercedes now in P5, P7, they're looking really good. I'm on with Duncan, who's in P13, and I'm thinking that with 12-lap fresher hards, he may be able to make a move on Aaron, but I think he's got to get a little bit closer. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do that on the front stretch. He's got the battery to make it happen if he wants. It's a distinct advantage from Aaron in P12. Let's see if he starts to spend some of it. No, it doesn't look like it. So he's going to get DRS. He's going to chip away at that gap for a little while longer before making a move. Jumping up to Dago. He's on 18-lap old mediums. So he also had a significant undercut. Safety car for him would be great. He can get on fresh softs, because I think he may have trouble passing Peter on 12-lap older mediums.
He's going to have incredible pace to be able to do that, or a moment from Peter Giordano. We've seen him get a little bit squirrely at P14, at turn 14 a couple times. So he's probably driving a really unstable setup and trying to keep it out there as much as possible. But so far, he's got one of the fresher tires so far with the 6-lap old mediums. We just see Jetto in P15 get the fastest lap. He's one of the only drivers who's actually made laps on the soft tires there.
Yeah. Yeah, so Hill, that's a point for him too. So just finish and you'll get it. And we've had 4 of the 6 new guys have finished. The only ones left over are Brendan and Justin that remain on track. Major Castleman spent a lot of his battery trying to close that gap. It was 8 tenths. It's now 7.5 tenths. It's back up to 8.
Yeah, I gotta say, kudos to Major Castleman for staying in DRS zone behind Hudson Pool. You'll never know if there's a little bit of a moment that could happen between with the Red Bull there. So he's fighting it and doing everything he can to stay in DRS zone so far. With already 7 laps to go, I feel like this race has just gone by so quickly. We're already nearly at the final stretch of the race.
Yeah, it has. It has flown by, yeah. So Major Castleman will luckily get DRS here along the front stretch. He can see Hudson's light flashing too. They're both burning ERS to try to outpace each other. The gap between 2 and 3 extending more. Dane Clem, Curly in P3, now almost a 6-second gap. Major Castleman really fighting to stay within DRS range. Some potential fights going along the field. We mentioned Jason Pelter. He's burning a little bit. He's going to try to get DRS on Era, but I don't think he's going to have enough to make the move.
Yeah, you mentioned puncture territory. I think Jeffrey Lawler there in P10 with 20 lap old mediums. He's still got 6 laps to go, so I'm thinking he might be able to get close to puncture territory. And Alex Duarte's got fresher tires right behind him in P11, so he's slowly closing the gap and right on the edge of getting in and out of the DRS zone. So he's slowly getting in there, and I think the AlphaTauri driver would be very happy to P10 considering the fact that he started P16.
Yeah, and he's reserving, right? I mean, I think that'd be a great show from Alex to come out here and secure P10. So he's really looking at it. The problem is, Dago's got DRS from Peter. So as much pace as Alex has, and he's within DRS range now himself. Well,
He's got to find a way to sneak into that DRS zone and keep himself there.
He's got to burn the ERS at the right time. You know what I mean?
And that is easier said than done in Zandvoort. You don't
It's-
want to hit the ERS too early on a turn.
I want to stay on board with Alex to see if something can happen here, but Major Castleman has just gone a second behind Hudson Pool.
He's
and
done
now
it.
I'm afraid to say that that gap will probably increase as we wrap up the race.
Yeah, Hudson Pool really knows how to finish a race there. So Alex Duarte is got DRS on Jeffrey Lawler. So if he could stay in that zone now, slowly clawing at the back of that card, and I'm telling you that Jeffrey's got 21 lap old tires.
They have to be
These mediums
screaming.
are they must be. One of 2 things are gonna happen. That's my prediction. We'll see if it happens. But either he's getting a flat tire at some point, or he's gonna lose it because I don't know how he's keeping the car on the road with those tires used up like that.
Yeah. Duncan now getting really close to Aaron Altmaier. He's got a 12-lap tire advantage. They're on the hards. Duncan's tire says he look good, but Aaron's hard tires may be starting to fade here. Remember, he had that massive undercut on lap 10, 11, something like that. Duncan just might not have the battery, though, to make it stick. He's got to get a really good exit here out of 13 and 14 to have any hope of passing him into turn 1. He uses it. He's got the
Jeffrey's in
DRS
the
and the
pits.
ERS, but he's out. He may have it. He's using that slipstream really nicely. He goes around the inside, tries to make it happen. And Aaron may concede that at some point. Kind of understanding that he may not be able to fight there for long. But speaking of those old mediums, Dago is just pitted for softs.
Yeah, Jeffrey Lawler just pitted for soft, so he's got 4 laps to go, and he's gonna try to probably steal the fastest lap from the house driver so far.
Yeah.
And I think that's very much doable on his end.
It's doable for him. I think Eric McNerney may be trying something similar. Interesting strategy from him. He's going into the softs. We'll see if he can try to dethrone Dago. I think we are expecting Dago to come away with fastest lap here.
Rather
see.
surprisingly, I think he might be able to take the fastest lap away from Lawler because Eric McNerney has got an absolute full battery right now.
Really? He does.
He can technically go around the whole lap. dumping the battery and get the fastest lap out of there.
Quali. It's quali practice for Eric. I mean,
Go.
yeah, we'll see what he could do. Let's ride on with him for it. This is his out lap, so he will be warming up his tires nice and probably start dumping in 13 and 14. Well, he comes around for his fast lap. Let's hop on with Jason Pelter. Still about half a second behind Eric Carvalho. He's got 2 lap older tires, but he's got almost 50% battery. How much does Eric have? Let's check in.
2010.
So Jason has probably seen that flashing light. There it is. We can see it now. Jason's going to start to make a move here towards the end as this race wraps up. And there it is. Eric starts dumping. He's got almost half of it gone as he comes down the main straight into turn 1. Keeps it nice and tidy there. He'll head into the little kink for turn 2 and into turn 3. And Jason Pelter with a heartbreaking 3-second penalty for track limits. And that may affect the pressure that he can put on Era.
Now it's even more important that he gets in front of Eric because he's now looking at possibly P9 finish. Peter
He
Giordano's
is.
at 2.7 behind him.
We'll hop on board with Jason real quick. He tried to make that move in the front stretch, but didn't do it. Still got 35% battery, but he's got to bide his time and make it stick. Let's hop back on with Eric McNerney, draining his battery, coming into the first DRS zone. Now, he doesn't have DRS, so he was in no man's land, so he won't get that. Dago puts in a 1:11.6, so perfect timing.
That's the time to beat.
We'll ride on with the Williams reserve as he tries to make it happen.
And I'm not sure if Dago even knows that's going on behind him there, so he might get a bit of a surprise. It's going to be a tight one, I think.
He might.
He's
Oh!
out there at 112.1.
A 112.1. Yeah, let's see if we can see the
So it was a 111.6 from Jeffrey Lawler and 112.1. So McNerney wasn't able, despite having full batteries, wasn't able to get the fastest lap out of there, and
Yeah,
that was
so-
basically his only chance.
It was, yeah. Taking a look at the fastest lap, yeah, that was it. So he's still about 4/10 slower than Dago, and now the battery is gone. But a valiant
If
effort.
it
from
wasn't
the
for
Williams
Dago,
driver.
it would have been the fastest lap.
Yeah. So as we come to the end of this race, let's look at some big winners so far. Justin Clark up 7 spots into P4. Eric Carvalho up 6. Great showing today from the Mercedes. They're currently in P5, P7. It'll be a great
Absolutely.
finish if it sticks. Jason Pelter up 4 spots. He's in P8. Let's ride on with him as he'll try to undoubtedly make a final move. Duncan Ruff qualified really well. Falls 5 spots to P10. Dago is up 6. And a lot of the new guys not getting the memo about finishing the race. That will hopefully be rectified as they'll look to score points in round 10, Singapore, next weekend.
Yeah, it's unfortunate 3 drivers who dropped out, and we started only on 19 drivers, so we're finishing with 16 drivers total. Memo's going to be sent to those guys, that they need to finish their races. At least they should have been told by the race engineers to begin with, if they had, and they're definitely going to be told by their team principals as well, if they're
Yeah.
not already.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This may be one of the last passing chances that Jason Pelter will get on Eric Carvalho. He's also looking at that gap to Peter Giordano to make sure that he takes P8. He thought about the move on the inside, but he will not have it, and will try to maybe bide his time and take it on the last lap. So we'll keep an eye on that. Let's ride on with Major Castleman. You can see Hudson Poole in front of him. Got enough of a gap. Hudson
I
Poole
think we
will
have a
come around here.
situation with Alex Duarte. I don't know what happened, but he's driving rather slow right now, and he's down P13.
We'll hop on for a second. Let's get back on with Hudson as he comes into turn 13 and 14 for the last time. He comes around to the front stretch. It was touch and go there for a while, but it was inevitable. The Hudson Hornet, your winner at Zandvoort. Major Castleman P2. Retrograde Dane Clem will be coming around for P3. A great showing for the reserve driver in P3. Maxime coming in with P4. Made a move on Luke Locklear that we didn't see. Luke must have had a moment. Maxime is going to steal P4 from the Alpine driver. Luke in P5. Still a good day for Alpine. P2, P5. Justin
Jason
Clark
Pelter
in
is
the
going
Alfa
for error there.
Romeo.
He's trying.
Gets P6 stolen from him. It looks like he ran out of fuel.
Oh my goodness. Out
Arrow
of
with a
fuel, and I think that's what
P6.
happened with Alex Duarte as well.
So fuel load, Peter Giordano, great recovery. He's in P8. Jason Pelter, P9. Didn't get the gap going. Justin Clark, tough luck with fuel. Duncan, P10. Aaron Altmaier, P11. Dago, P12. Tough day for Aston Martin. Dago still has to finish P12. And he's done it. Eric McNerney, a solid reserve performance as well for the Williams driver. He'll get good points for them today. Brendan
Yeah, they're
Jettle
gonna be
has
happy
finished
with
too.
that.
He classifies a lap down in P15.
Very
he
slowly,
scores
the
points.
final AlphaTauri is going to be crawling to the finish line in low fuel mode. Heartbreaking. Had
Man.
such an amazing race, Alex Duarte, but it ends with I forgot to put enough fuel for my race.
Heartbreak for AlphaTauri. Heartbreak for some of the new guys. It looked great there for a while for Marc Olivier, and did not pan out. Driver of the day, Eric Carvalho, well deserved. The Mercs turned out to have a really good day, man.
Absolutely.
I'm really happy for them there. They looked good. It was very under the radar too, right, John? I mean, all of a sudden they're P4, P6.
They're just doing what they usually do. That's what Mercedes does. They are very, very stable and very consistent, race in and race out, no matter the weather as well. So I think they're really having a great finish in regards to the season here, compared to some of their direct rivals right now, who are either doing very good or not so good. Right now, McLaren's struggling a little bit, so they're gonna have to work a lot harder to get in better points next weekend.
We will check in on the waiting room for a little bit, the cool down room, as we try to pull some of these guys in for interviews. I see Major Castleman in there, who had an outstanding P2. I also want to hear
Stuck it
Hudson's.
close to Hudson Pool for most of the race. Really,
Yeah.
that was
That was an outstanding
awesome.
performance, and I'm curious what Hudson's thoughts are too of the incident. So let's bring in Retrograde first, P3. So John, I'm gonna bring him in now. Retrograde, Dane Clem.
Yeah.
Welcome to the broadcast booth, dude. Congratulations, podium finish, reserving for Ferrari. Good show.
Yeah, it was really all done on the first lap. There was some chaos coming out of turn one. I had a really good start as it was. Just a really good launch off the line, and then I was able to keep it clean around the outside of turn one, and then I was up to P4, so 7th to 4th, and before the first sector was even over. And thankfully I was able to jump the Alfa Romeo in the pits somehow, and then it was just clean sailing from there, just keeping it consistent. Unfortunately, with all that fighting with the Alfa Romeo before the pit stops came around, I lost the DRS from 2 cars up ahead.
Yeah.
I think I could have stayed with them, but it wouldn't have mattered really because I don't think I had the pace to overtake either of them. But I know I could have stuck with them in the DRS to make it look closer. But overall, I'm really happy, especially since I had 0 practice going up into this race. I literally just hopped on for the first time today. Quality was my first time on the game today, and so just first laps. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. First podium actually in a reputable league, and so I'm really happy with this.
Yeah, it's great to have, man. I was just gonna say, I think from what I've seen, this may be your first race with ZRL, and that I think I can remember. You put it on P3 in our highest division. I'm hoping you're looking to stick around and hang with D1 next season.
Unfortunately, it's probably not going to be possible just because of how the direction my life is going to be going in the next year. So honestly, I'm probably going to be gone. This is probably one of my last races, period. So I'm really happy to end it on this note. I'm just going to have to move on in life, really. So yeah, I'm really happy.
Well, on the back of those news, Dane, honestly, congratulations for your podium once again. You showed incredible pace out there, and unfortunately we don't get to keep a driver like you. But if the opportunity shows up again, would you consider coming back?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm really enjoying the league. It was actually Dougie Falcons that invited me to the league, and so I thank him for that because it's been fun racing in this league. This is only my second race. I reserved at Monza in D1 was it last race? I don't know.
Yeah, last weekend. Yep.
So that was fun, and yeah, so I've only raced 2 times here, but I've had a good experience both times.
Well, it was awesome having you around, man. Congrats on the P3. Just a hell of a performance on a tough track, especially with no practice. Good stuff. Hope to see you around soon.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, let's get in Major Castleman here, John. I'll bring him in. Hey, Major, welcome to the booth, man. Congrats on another podium finish. A strong P2. Dude, you were hanging with Hudson for like 90% of that race, man. Nice job.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was it's my first time here. Super excited. Yeah, it was a good race. I had a invalidated final qualifying lap, which was a little unfortunate, but yeah, it happens. So yeah, super happy though. It was my best qualifying of the season so far, and my best finish of the season so far. So I'd say that after a couple bad races, this has been a really good one.
Yeah, I think hell of a performance. Is this one of your stronger tracks, Major? Because I noticed you even started to gap up on retrograde behind you. I would say by the second third of that race, that gap slowly increasing 2, 3, 4, all the way to like 6 seconds. This one of your favorite tracks to run?
I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite track, but I think it's a track that fits the kind of tracks that I like
Right.
really well. I love the flowing kind of one corner blending into another kind of situation. So yeah, I think it's just a track that gels well with what I look for in a good circuit.
Major, I'm gonna ask you more of a interesting question there. We've noticed in the drivers' standings, there's been a gap forming between you and your partner Luke Locklear, and a lot of pressure's been there on Alpine recently. You know, from last race, you've dropped 2 positions in the championship. Alpine had a great race tonight, and you pulled it off with that P2. And you've probably jumped 2, if not 3 positions in the driver standings as well. How does that make you feel?
That makes me feel great. Yeah, I've had a rough few weeks since I think whatever round 3 was. I've just had trouble putting entire races together. Last week in Monza was definitely my worst performance of the season. So yeah, I think it was definitely necessary to like get things back on track for the second half, and this is definitely a great way to start it.
Well, hey, man, congrats again. Outstanding P2, outstanding performance. Yeah, sounds good. Hopefully next week. How do you feel about Singapore? We got a chance to see you up here again?
You know, I would love to. Singapore is another circuit that I like, not for the same reasons as Zandvoort, but I will be on vacation, so unfortunately I will not be racing next week. But you will see me back for whatever the week after is.
So I think I misspoke, and actually Mexico is last week. Singapore is the week after. So I don't know, maybe I just knew that all along, and we were talking about Singapore the whole time.
Excellent. Well, I will be here for Singapore then. Definitely looking forward to that. I am. I love a good street circuit. So, and Singapore is my favorite of the street circuits. So, looking forward
Agreed.
to an exciting race.
Yeah,
in Singapore.
I think I agree with you, Major. Really great job today. Looking forward to Mexico and then Singapore, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Congrats.
All right, let's bring Hudson in now. Hudson Hornet with yet another win. This one, a lot of interesting things happened. You had a little bit of a recovery for kind of the first time. Congrats on the win, man. How did you feel today?
It was stressful after that turn 1 incident on lap 1. I was like, I gotta get this together and make a recovery drive, I guess. Luckily, the ghosting kind of favored me, so I could go through a few people. So I think I maybe ended out like P6, P5 after it. luckily, my awesome teammate Duncan McCamick let me by, so that was one less position to worry about. But yeah, it was a really crazy race.
Hudson, first comments on that incident for your turn one with Luke Locklear. Was that just racing incidents, two drivers not giving each other enough space?
I mean, I went as wide as I could to the left. You know, it's I don't know. I didn't check if we got cold tires from because it was broadcast and it's iffy. But maybe he had cold tires. I don't know. But in my opinion, I tried to, you know, he didn't leave me enough space. But it's racing, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll probably see that incident maybe once or more, and kind of in the paddock, kind of moving forward. ERS was tough. Usually we see you kind of run away from the pack a little bit earlier in the race than what happened today. ERS management is so tricky around Zandvoort, and Major Castleman had a ton of pace. I mean, did you kind of feel the pressure throughout kind of the entire time, or after the recovery was complete, did you feel pretty good?
Uh, yeah, the ERS was interesting. I didn't really think about it beforehand because I was just doing GP and not actually thinking about the managing.
Right.
And like when I was trying to get back from the incident, I was like, "Holy smokes, this is going by really fast," because the high wings. And so yeah, when I came out of the pits to try to overcut him, it didn't happen, and he started kind of going like flying ahead of me, and I was losing DRS, and I was like, "Oh shit, I need to pull things together," and I luckily did. So but yeah, ERS played a huge factor into this race.
Yeah, yet another win, man. How do you feel about Mexico next week?
I have no idea. This is also my first race that I won with no line. So
Oh,
that's like,
congratulations.
thank you, man. That was like an achievement, I suppose. Uh, yeah. And for Mexico, I haven't practiced it with no line yet, so I have no idea if it'll be like a tough one for me. I'm pretty sure Cody is going to try to reserve or try to get a seat for that race. So he loves that track, so it'll be very difficult to try to snatch that one from him or major, anyone.
Yeah. Well, Hudson, we'll let you go, man. Congrats on the win. Another one. We'll probably see you here next week during Mexico. Um, but dude, great job, man. Really fun to watch.
All right, thank you guys.
John, we had a lot of action in Zandvoort today. I was pleasantly surprised.
Pleasantly surprised. I think a lot of incidents, unfortunately, that turned things around. We thought we may see great position, great points being given to reserve drivers or new seat takers, but it wasn't their night tonight. So I think they're gonna get back into it and they're gonna practice all week for Mexico, and they're gonna be back with a vengeance. We had a great showing from a lot of those drivers. So I'm curious to see how they're gonna do in Mexico. And Mexico, personally, is what track I appreciate a lot. It's got a lot of high speed corners and
Mm-hmm.
had some technical bits. And I mean that sector 3 and the grandstands is just quite a view. It's really an interesting spot for F1 there. So next week is to be yet another great race, and I think we're slowly gonna have to start calculating and talking about Hudson Pool officially being crowned the champion within the next 2 races potentially when I'm looking at the standings there. So yeah, that's something that could happen as soon as maybe even Singapore.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you're spot on. We'll have to have someone in the paddock kind of do some math. But I'm really looking forward to Mexico this week. John, it was a pleasure. And to all of you, thanks for joining us. A lot of action today in Zandvoort. It was great. And we'll see you next week in Mexico.
Good night, everyone.